Hey guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. Now, I want to go right to the very end of this thing to explain why I'm not happy with basically number 10. We're going to go from 10 to 1 as to the most average, right, types of states. And it's actually going from higher inflation back down to a lower inflation, but the lower inflation is really right around the middle average point. But I want to take a moment and I want to go through this because I think the numbers, these calculation numbers that I did, were based off of the metrics that were used by the Social Security Administration for defining the cost of living adjustment. And as we all know, the cost of living didn't go up 8.7%. The cost of living went up by 30 something percent. Okay. It's a third more to live in this country. The food prices are way higher. The living prices are way higher. The utility prices are way higher. The medical prices, the grocery prices, the miscellaneous items, the healthcare, the transportation, all of those are much higher than 8.7%. But the problem I have with this is that number 10 just doesn't make sense to me. So when it comes to this big long list, right, Florida is number 10. Florida should not be number 10 of the most average inflation states that there are. I understand that they've got a good control on their taxes, and they have a pretty good capitalism going on there, where small companies can succeed, mid-sized companies can succeed, and they all live among the giant big fish companies. And I get that. I see up north, smaller companies are really starting to struggle against the massive chain companies and the super big box companies and stuff like that, which is not good. But my problem with Florida is that there's no way Florida was an 8.55 COLA as an independent specific COLA to that state. There's no way. There's no way. Florida massively went up in cost. All those people from New York and California moved to Florida. It massively went up in cost. Look, I bought my house at $475,000. It's now valued over $1 million. I understand the housing market is craziness, okay, but still, that's an extreme example. But it more than doubled. Right? And more than doubled. So there's some shenanigans and fluffiness going on with this COLA calculation. But let's go through them. Number 10 on our list is Florida, 8.55 COLA. Now, for number 9 and number 8, we had a tie. We had a tie between Utah and Puerto Rico, which isn't a state, but we're going to call it a state for the purposes of this. It's a possession. So Utah and Puerto Rico were very similar. How that happened when it comes to inflation, again, the numbers. Okay, I don't know, Number 7, Pennsylvania. I could see that. I could see Pennsylvania as kind of like a middle ground average state when it comes to inflation. Number 6, Minnesota. I could see that. That's fair. That's fair. That makes sense to me. Number 5, North Dakota. Yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that. They're not going to rip off all those bikers going up to Sturgis, if that is North Dakota. I think it's North Dakota. I don't really. I'm not a Harley guy, so I don't know. Number 4, we got to go all the way down to Idaho. I could see that as being an average inflation state. I mean, it's a big farm state. Would farms cause more inflation? Would farms cause less inflation? I don't know. That's a good question. Number 3, Wisconsin. Okay, I could see that. Number 2, North Carolina. And number 1, although realistically, I mean, it could a couple of states could be the most averagey states, but number 1 is Kentucky. I don't see Kentucky as a very averagey state. I see Kentucky on the super low, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I don't know Kentucky that well. I travel there to pick up vintage aluminum boats every once in a while, but it's not that I know Kentucky super well. I make fun of it sometimes because, a lot of people that are part of their families marry each other. It's just how it is. It's just, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's just the way it is up there. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying it is what it is up there. But Kentucky, I don't know. I would have put personally Kentucky up there with Mississippi, Oklahoma, Kansas, Alabama. I would have put Kentucky on like the states that have the least amount of inflation. Marry multiple. But well, yeah, it's Kentucky. It is Kentucky. Kentucky is special. If you don't think Kentucky's special, then you either live there and you're hiding something, or that's special for a lot of reasons. It's not just one. Or let's be honest here. or you're one of those people who likes to have an opinion but does not know anything about the topic you're talking about, which is very common nowadays. I love those people. They're great to listen to because they make me smile on the inside. They really do. I mean, they have no idea what's going on, but that's okay. You know, even I don't know much about Kentucky. I've been to Kentucky enough to have a general understanding, but I wouldn't have put Kentucky in the middle. I would have put Kentucky up with Mississippi, Oklahoma, Missouri, West Virginia, Georgia, Alabama. I wouldn't have put Georgia up there. Georgia has massive airport and a this and a that, and you know, the highway structure and the seaports. And I wouldn't have put Georgia up there with super low inflation states. I just wouldn't have. Look, the other side of the coin, it's easy. You got Hawaii, New York, California, Massachusetts, District of Columbia, Alaska, Maryland, Oregon, New Jersey, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, Washington, Rhode Island, New Hampshire. Yeah, I would see those as high inflation states, obviously. You know what I mean? We all know why I'm not going into it, because people get the feathers on their tails. They just start plucking them out. But with this, I don't see that. I don't see that. To me, Kentucky is a real state for. Now, remember, Kentucky has a lot of blue collar workers. Some of the best welders in this nation are in Kentucky. Some of the best boat builders are in Kentucky. How the hell that happened? Well, they got ponds, they got lakes, they got rivers, and they used what they had. And then they made stuff. But there was the irony of it. You know what I mean? Because you'd expect like a state that's on the ocean to actually do that. But anyways, point is, bottom line, I wouldn't have expected that. Florida, I think they got this all wrong. Florida has to have high inflation. There's everybody from California and New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont. All those people moved to Florida. Massive amount of people moved to Florida. They ran out of U-Haul trucks in California. They have to literally assess for California how many representatives they're going to have in Congress as a result of how many people have moved out of California. So I don't see Florida as being an averaging state. I think the math is wrong on that. And this math is just based off of their math. It's just an averaging algorithm I used on their averaging algorithm to figure out what the COLA rate would be. Do I agree with Utah or Puerto Rico? I don't know where Puerto Rico stands. Maybe you guys can help me out with that. Let's see. What's Indiana? Indiana is they're number 9 on the least inflation states. They're number 9. So out of like the top 10, you know what I mean? Like the highest inflation, or the lowest inflation state would be Mississippi. 9 down from that would be Indiana. Yeah, which makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Kentucky does have some awesome caves. Kentucky has Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is not a good Republican. I don't even think Republicans like Mitch McConnell. I got to be honest with you guys. I just don't think. I'm not going to go into it, but I don't think I don't think Mitch McConnell represents the base. Maybe the Kentucky base. I got to stop. All right. Now, with that said, everybody moved to Florida and Texas. That's basically what happened. But Puerto Rico, I would have assumed Puerto Rico would have been way down in the low inflation places. But then Puerto Rico has incredibly vast and massive amounts of just bias and government, doing the wrong thing over and over. It's the government in Puerto Rico is not good, especially for the locals. And a lot of the houses on the water have all been bought up by the, Rolex Patek Philippe wearing, Bitcoin kids that are, all of a sudden multimillionaires. So for Puerto Rico to end up there, that means the entire economy of Puerto Rico has have to have changed just from this whole Bitcoin adventure. I mean, it has to, because the locals there don't have money to make that an average inflation state, right? Otherwise, that would have been like, number 1 surpassing Mississippi as like a possession. That would have been number 1. All right, so do I agree with that one? I don't agree with that one. I could see Pennsylvania. I could see Minnesota. I could see North Dakota. I bet South Dakota's higher up on inflation. I'll bet you a nickel it is. I'm not sure where it is. Hold on, let me find it. No, it's lower. Wait, let me check. North Dakota, 8.27. South Dakota, 7.87. South Dakota's less. I didn't expect that. Because South Dakota, hold on, let me see. 2020. Let me just check something real quick. I just want to see something myself to see. The 270. Okay, here we go. Interest. No, okay, all right. So they're both red states. They're both red states. Where's Minnesota on here? Minnesota. Okay, so Minnesota is there's South Dakota. There's North Dakota. Okay, so Minnesota is just all right. So so what we're seeing here is the balancing, right? We're seeing the transition in these middle states as to the red states for the low inflations to the blue states, which are the high inflations. This is where it's occurring right here. Basically, between North Dakota and Minnesota, obviously Pennsylvania we know went blue. So what we're seeing here is that's kind of your balancing point. When North Dakota went to Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico, Idaho. Where's Idaho on the map? Let's see. When it comes to Democrat or Republican. Oh, let me see. So they're red. They're red. Okay. All right. So it's interesting because what you're seeing is basically a lot of red states here, a lot of blue states here. And where's the line? And the line is really just, it's North Dakota, Minnesota, right around there. It's right around the 8.27 and the 8.3 COLA. That's your midpoint for the inflation change. That's interesting. That's an interesting study because you guys ended up with 8.7 as the federal average. And the reason the federal average was more than the average of these states was because, as it was set up on this chart, was that Hawaii and the District of Columbia and Massachusetts and New York and California and Alaska were really bad. They were really high. Okay, so let me show you something real quick. All right, so Alaska was an 11. Okay, New York was a 10.48. California was 11.06 COLA. Massachusetts an 11.44 COLA. District of Columbia 11.31. Hawaii out of the blue. I mean, it's just ridiculous. 13.96. There's a big jump between New York and Alaska, which are similar, and the next one down, which is Maryland. Once we get to Maryland, Oregon, New Jersey, Maine, so there's like two blue state stages or steps. There's the ultra blue states, which are like your Hawaii's, District of Columbia, Massachusetts. Obviously, District of Columbia is not a state. For the person that comments, it's not a state. We got it, bro. We got it. Hawaii, District of Columbia, Massachusetts, California, New York. Those are your ultra blue states. And then when you get to Maryland, Oregon, New Jersey, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, those are not your ultra blue states mathematically based off of their cost of living adjustment, even though Vermont, New Jersey, even Maine are very, very blue states, but their inflation was not as extreme. I'm not sure why that is. That's interesting. Let me read some of the comments here. What about Ohio? Where's Ohio on here? Ohio was low, 7.85. They're on the low. They're in between the 10 average states and the lowest inflation states. So they're pretty low. Maine was a 9.47. They're high. They're high. Not the super blue high states, but they're high. Let me see. Is there a way to address the fact that if you receive SNAP, the local government take away from COLA? I have to do a video on the COLA versus the SNAP versus the raises. Will they reduce your food stamps? I have to do a video on that. I just haven't had a chance because I've been doing the farm thing. Okay, let me see. Willow Grace Homestead said, okay, but how did they come up with 8, whatever, instead of 30% cost of living? They came up with it using magic math. That's what they did. I am working on hiring mathematicians to do an assessment as to what inflation or how to calculate inflation should actually be done. Not do we pick, these 3 months here and only these categories, but how should inflation actually be figured out? And the point is, I'm starting to befriend mathematicians to prepare documentation that can be used for a civil lawsuit as a class action for the cost of living adjustment not being appropriate for people. I think their benefits should be twice as much, not just from the 2000 to 22 or 2020 to 2021 mark that the nonprofit came out with, but I think you go even farther back to the 1930s, the retirement 1950s, SSDI 1970s, SSI, you're going to see that the benefits have been manipulated for quite some time. All right. With that said, let me see some of these. Michigan, 5% it says. Unbelievable. No, Michigan I have as Michigan, hold on, I'll find it on here. Michigan is a 7.87 COLA. That's what they have using their second quarter math, not the third quarter, which is what they ultimately used for the 8.7. But I didn't have that math when I first did the calculations here. But it's similar. It's very similar. Tennessee, let me find it. Tennessee's low. Tennessee is the 7th lowest, a 7.58. Tennessee's super low for sure. Let's see. Magic number like Harry Potter. I wish it would have been a better movie if it were true. West Virginia, they're going to be low. I know they're on here. Let me find them real quick. Yeah, they're here. West Virginia is a 7.86. I think they are, let me see. They're 12th highest, I think. It's right around there. 12th lowest, or I guess highest of the low inflation. So if you have like the lowest inflation, they're 12 up. Okay, so they're pretty good. Other than that, guys, I will catch you a little bit later. Wisconsin, I'll find it real quick. Hold on, let me find it. Wisconsin was 8.21. They are number 3 on the averages of the average states. So yeah. Did I do New Hampshire? Let me see. New Hampshire, that's going to be a high one because that's a super liberal state. New Hampshire, yeah, way up here. That is a 9.5. 9.5. They almost made it onto the top 10 most high inflation states. Number 10 was a 9.61, Connecticut, and New Hampshire was a 9.5, which makes it number 11. Yeah, they were the 11th. Cincinnati Fireball, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. You know what I'll do, guys? I'll do another video where I just go through the list. I'll just map out what each COLA for each state is and just go through the whole list. Let me do another video. I will catch you a little bit later. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful night, and we will go from there. And thank you so much for being a part of the channel and hanging out with me. I'll catch you later, guys. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.